there, I am Sarah Kolis. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal dresses and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahkolis.com to book a bridal alterations fitting, or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I am so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we have Carleana DeLaCruz with Hairpins and Happiness. I'm so excited to have this chat with you, Carleana. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So very first question for you. What is your favorite item in your closet right now? We are on the Dressing Up podcast after all.
So I'm a hairstylist, and by nature, we wear a lot of black. So everything in my closet is black.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very rare that I'm not wearing black, but I have been wearing this actual blazer that I'm wearing right now quite often. It's just structured and fits me well. So I've been wearing that a lot. Yeah. Lots of layery pieces because we're in Michigan and you kind of have to right now.
Awesome. Okay. Well, can you reintroduce yourself again and tell us what you do and who you work with?
I am Carleana DeLaCruz. I own and operate Hairpins and Happiness, which is my bridal beauty business. I go on location for bridal parties to help pretty you up for your big day. And when I'm not working with my company, Hairpins and Happiness, I'm also behind the chair. I rent a studio in East Lansing. I have a studio mate and lots of other lovely coworkers that work in the same building in their own suites. And I take care of my clients' cut and color needs throughout the week. And then I get to do all of the fun session work and bridal parties and stuff on the weekends.
Wow, that sounds like such a fun job. You get to work with so many people and you see the bride on her actual wedding day, which is something I don't often get to see. So that's a whole thing.
Nowadays it's changed a lot over my 20 years, but it's definitely amazing to get to see everything kind of come together from their bridal preview. You know, sometimes it's a month or 9 months ahead, depending on logistics and where the bride lives and is traveling from to come see me for the preview. But yeah, to get to see every stage and kind of their excitement come to life on the day of is really cool. And everybody likes to see the hairstylist on the day of the wedding. Everybody's excited to see me.
Yeah, when you walk through the door, they're like, yay!
Yay, she's here. Yeah, it's like, you know, my little entourage for a hot second, just my like single serving entourage.
I love it.
That's really
such a good point.
Yeah.
So working a lot with brides, what would you say is one overall, this might be hard to answer, but just one tip that you could give brides in general when it comes to hair on their wedding day?
Oh gosh, listen to your hairstylist. A lot of times, I mean, you want to feel like the best version of yourself. So definitely don't be quiet about like, oh, that just makes, I don't like that part or whatever. I'm not saying don't stick up for yourself and have a voice, but sometimes it's so refreshing when a bride will listen to feedback and say, I'm not sure, what do you think? And with a fresh perspective, a hairstylist knows face shape and coloring and so on, and can make suggestions. And it might just be a soft, subtle change, but I've seen, you know, the change in their demeanor, like, oh, you're right, that is amazing, or that's going to photograph better, or, you know, I'm not used to quite that much volume, I don't know. And then we take a few pictures on an iPhone and they're like, perfect. I can't believe, you know, I was uncomfortable with that before, or whatever the change is. So just kind of listening to your professional, you hired them for a reason, and it's important to be able to have that trust.
Gosh, I love the way you said that too, because it's like, you know, as the bride, you would normally think like, well, I want my hair to be exactly the way I want it. But from your perspective, being a professional and doing this over and over and over again, you have learned, you know, mistakes that others have made along the way, and just getting your professional opinion in there is the whole reason you're there in the first place, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it's something as silly as, like, I always say they're whoopee, like there's something that everybody want. Like, I have a coworker that always has her whoopee as her side bang. She has to have that down, and that's her comfort blanket. That is just fine. Everybody has a whoopee of some sort, right?
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I mean, or something that they're concerned about, like, as long as my ears don't show. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with her ears? Like, her ears are fine. but everybody's got a
fun.
thing, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, those certain things, like, yes, you can still have that whoopee, but what if we soften it? Or what if, halfway through the night it's driving you crazy, you want to be able to tuck it behind your ear, or whatever the case is. Like, you can always make tweaks and suggestions and stuff. And it's a lot about your comfort level with whatever it is. Your face is in every photo. Every single photo, you're going to see at least the top of the dress, the jewelry, the hair, the face. Every single photo. 20, 30 years after your marriage, people are going to forget about the centerpieces at the wedding. They're not going to forget how they felt and how they looked on their wedding day. They're
Oh
just
my
not.
gosh. You just gave me chills. Like that is so true.
It is, it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I know. And
Mhm.
I'm part of that too, just coming in with the dress.
Absolutely.
Like I never, take it for granted. It's like what we
Yeah,
do is so important for like 20 years from now. They're going to remember some of the things
absolutely.
we talked about and did for them. It's
Yes,
amazing.
some of those details and how they felt at their dress fitting and at their bridal preview for their hair and makeup and on the day of the wedding when they walk down the aisle. Like, you want to feel confident and comfortable in your hair, your makeup, and your dress, and it's so important. And we as creatives get to, like, make that happen and make sure they love the reflection. And it's a really cool career for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. What do you think about I hear this often that girls are growing out their hair and they're waiting to cut it until after the wedding. Like they want it
Yeah.
extra long. But I did the opposite. I chopped it right before my wedding and I
Right.
haven't grown it out since. But I'm wondering if and I kind of want to just know this for my own, like when I'm talking with my brides too. But
Sure.
I would think that if you have super long hair, like trying to get all that into a low bun, isn't that almost more difficult than if it was a little
um
shorter? Or what are your thoughts?
That's a really, really good question. And there's so many variables. So some people have very thin hair or very fine texture, very fine fabric to work with. So when we are doing the bridal preview and they're talking about, like, oh, I've been growing it out all this time. And I'm like, yeah, like 6 inches of this isn't necessary. I can, like, with a low knot specifically, there's so much that I can do to almost tie it off, actually, to
Yeah.
hide some
Okay.
of that extra length. But depending on the style that they choose, sometimes it's like, yeah, no, some of this actually has to go. And really, some of your ends are kind of chewed up and frayed because you've been waiting so long. So it needs to be healthy because the camera will pick up on some of that. And although, yes, anything can be doctored up post production or whatever with the photographer, it's a lot of extra work for the photographer to get every little split end or wild hair out of the way. So you don't want to count on that. It's a lot of extra time and money and headache for the poor
Right.
photographer. But anyway, as far as the length goes, yeah, there's so many tips and tricks that the hairstylist has in her arsenal in this day and age. So I have donuts that I will actually cut apart and kind of like mold into the interior of a bun or a knot to give some extra fullness and depth to the finished hairstyle. So that is one thing we can do. If it's something that's half up and half down or all down with just a little tuck or something, there's tons of halo extensions and weaves that we can pop in. So there's really no reason today to grow your hair out unless you went from a pixie to wanting your hair in a bun. Obviously you need to do some growing, but
Right.
as a rule people will come in with like waist length hair and I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of hair. Like, you don't need all this.
That's a lot to
So yeah.
curl. That's a,
Yeah.
just
I
a
mean,
lot.
not just that, but yeah, sometimes it gets too heavy. So then I can't hold the curl. If it's going into a bun, that's not as relevant. But
Mhm.
for half up, half down, yeah, the hair itself will actually start to pull out some of that curl, which we all know. But I think a lot of brides start obsessing about, my hair's not long enough. I need it longer for the wedding. It's the day. And I think talking to your stylist about that ahead of time is important.
Do you have any particularly wonderful past brides or clients that you've worked with that have stood out, maybe more so for the type of hairstyle that they wanted or just
Mm.
something unique or different about them?
Oh my gosh, I have 20 years of archives here.
Gotta dig through.
I know. I mean, every bride it's always such a different experience because, your wedding is such a personal thing, and people have had beautiful heirlooms that they want, like grandma's brooch, instead of using like something from a bridal shop or something that's brand new. There's something borrowed or there's something old from grandma's jewelry collection. So I've tucked in some really beautiful pieces into people's hair. I've also, not to do with hair, but I've also seen people tuck grandma's brooch into like the bouquet
Yeah.
and had the florist work with it that way. So there's always like a little sentimental touch. I've had ribbon that I've been asked to weave into the hair because it was part of mom's dress and mom passed away. And that was a very emotional thing to be part of. As I was putting it into her hair, she was like softly sobbing, and just trying to let her have that moment, but also not lean into it and have it like ruin her whole morning. And so there's so many special moments that we, as the bridal team, get to be privy to, which is, it's kind of awe-inspiring in a way. Like it's very special to be part of some of that.
Yes, very.
Yeah.
Those are some things I haven't thought of before. That's really cool. I've, of course, gotten with the dress, like sewing a little heart from mom's dress on the inside or something
Yeah.
like that. But that's cool that some people have thrown those things up into their hairstyle. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
there was one time where they just brought out, and it was a complete like trump card for me. Like
Yeah.
they brought out this whole splay of grandma's jewelry, and they were like, we know we want to use a piece of this in my hair, my sister's hair, and my mom's hair, because grandma had just passed recently within the year of the wedding. And it was just this big splay of all these gorgeous pieces, and some of them were too clunky or whatever to use in the hair, but a lot of them were these really intricate little, some of them were actually hairpins that she must have been quite the lady with all of this jewelry to choose from. But she had really great taste, and there was some like pearl pieces and some really intricate little wire pieces that we were able to incorporate into those three women's hair. And it was really special to be part of that. Like I got to help choose the thing, because a lot of times brides are like, this is my inspiration photo, I want it to look exactly like this, and that is fine. Everybody's process is different, and that's what makes our jobs unique. And I know you have the same thing with creating different dresses or altering different dresses for brides to make it perfect. I have a different version of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
pressure's on for you. If something goes a little off, I have time, but you're like, you got to make it work.
I don't worry about that kind of stuff anymore. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, which seems terrible, I guess. I don't know, but
No, that sounds great. Yeah.
yeah, I don't worry about like, what if they don't like their hair? And I'm like, but they're going to. That's what the preview is for. And some brides, especially like last summer, I had a bride from Texas. She wasn't going to be able to make it. Our schedules just weren't jiving. So we did like very similar to what we're doing right now, a Zoom situation, just so I could see her hair, kind of chat with her a little bit. She held up a few pictures like this. Like, this is what
Yeah.
I want my hair to look like.
Yeah.
And she also, emailed them to me later, but we just kind of had a quick chat about what she was expecting. And I met her for the first time on her wedding day. And I had a couple of coworkers that were like, whoa, wait a minute, isn't that? No, it's great. And the day of her wedding was actually really rainy and windy, and it was right on the lake. We were up in just north of Traverse City. And we actually ended up adjusting her hair a little bit on the day of, because it was like, weather is not
Not your friend
in
right
your
now.
favor. No.
Yeah.
So we had to, and that has happened over the years too. Like you practice something and they're like, nope, I want my hair down. I know that's how I'm confident. That's how I'm comfortable. I wouldn't feel right if it was up and it's a monsoon outside. We need to make a game day decision here. Like,
Yeah.
your hair, I have a lot of tricks and I have a lot of magic wands in my back pocket, but weather that's another trump card. You have to kind of go with it. And they've trusted me and really loved their hair. So
I wanted to ask, having 20 years experience, I'm sure you've seen a lot of trends come and go. Are there any
oh
trends
gosh.
you don't miss?
Oh God. Yes, the barrel curl. Like my hair is up on top of my head right now, and a lot of top knots and ballet buns are really popular currently. But oh my gosh, those really structured barrel curls of like the early 2000s were
Yeah. Like a kind of Shirley Temple-esque, right? Like,
Nope, they were really a barrel curl is literally like if you put a Velcro roller and just left it there over and over and over. You know what I mean? Like they're
oh,
really structured,
I know what you're talking about.
perfect. Yes, and it
In
would be
an up
like
bun, right? Like up on.
yes, and
Okay.
it was super tight, and
Yes.
everything was just right here up on top, and there was usually a tiara. I'm like,
Oh,
"You're not a princess, you're a bride. I want you to feel like a princess, but you're not actually royalty today." It was very harsh crowns, and tiaras come in, and I've seen those come and go, you know, everything, all trends, it's all cyclical, it all comes back. But the full crown is really difficult to work with because it would go all the way around that
oh,
perfect bun,
oh.
and you had to make sure it's heavy first of all. So to try to pin that in place, there's not really anywhere that you can't see the pin, and they were not
And
my favorite.
you did those a lot. It sounds like you like,
Constantly. That I
oh
mean,
my,
that was just like what people wanted. They didn't want now there's a lot of softness and there's a lot of romance in the hair. There's a lot of people like, you know, the framey pieces and stuff like that. And this was always very harsh and very structured and very like it reminds me of the movie Still Magnolias, where they're talking about football helmet hair.
yeah.
Like you could knock on it. It
Oh
was
my
so stiff.
God. So
And
much
that
hair
was the
still.
expectation. Not a single hair out of place. Very
That
like
sounds,
Lego person hair. Like you can just take it off and put it on somebody else.
yeah, it kind of
I
sounds
don't miss it.
like dancer cheerleader type of style.
Yes, yes, I
Like, and
would say so.
I think dancers and cheerleaders might still maybe be doing that now, but yeah, for
Yeah,
bridal, I'm not.
it's meant to be, yeah, not move out of place, but they're also like athletes. So they're they're flipping
They have a
around and stuff.
reason.
And yes, exactly. Most brides are not out doing, you know, pyramids and cartwheels on their wedding day.
Not
And who am
exactly,
I?
no.
I'm sure some do. I don't know. But
In that case, we'll
as a
talk about the
rule,
hairstyle.
absolutely. I think that's a whole separate podcast.
Oh my gosh, yes. What about what are some current trends that you are loving right now?
Oh gosh, I love Alone. I know when we did the shoot for your sister-in-law,
Yeah.
Megan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a low knot, and I just feel like there's something so elegant about those low knots, and there's so many versions. I mean, a lot of people want again a lot of bits hanging out around their face or their bangs hanging out or softer or you know smaller, bigger, whatever, and there's so much creative space for me to play with in that. But it's not very often in our lives that we get to dress up our hair, and I just am such a sucker for a true upstyle or updo. Those are my favorites. They're very elegant. They're very bridal. It's
Wow.
like
I'm glad that
the classic bride.
yeah, I'm glad that we chose that style for Megan then. Like it
Yeah,
confirms that was a good choice.
that
Which
was a
by the
good
way,
choice.
that shoot was so much fun.
I
And
know. I
at the
loved that
time I
shoot.
didn't
It was
realize you were
special.
in East Lansing. So you
Yeah,
took a drive. So thank you for
I
that
did. I
alone.
did take a drive. Yeah,
Yeah,
more
but
than happy
oh
to
my
do
gosh.
it.
Yeah, you and yeah, Rosa did just such a good job. So you did her
Yes,
hair and then you stuck around
Rosa was
after
very
and just
talented.
made sure it was always laying perfect. So that was so
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
thank you. All right.
Oh,
Who would be your ideal client to work with? Is there a particular, maybe a bride that reaches out to you that you're just like so excited to do her styling for any particular reason?
yeah, I that's a good question too. I think that I don't know, every bride is so unique. So I don't you know, I definitely appeal to a certain vibe of bride, I guess. I mean, I
Yeah.
love doing some boho braided, you know, funky, fun hair. And that is very popular right now with the venues being a lot of barn weddings and a lot of outdoor venues like garden weddings and beachside weddings. And a lot of those boho kind of messy on purpose looks are really fun to work with. But I think my ideal bride is more of their personality and how outgoing they are and how fun they are to talk to and how excited they are about their wedding day. Your not so ideal bride is someone that's more, not that you asked, but I'm telling you,
Let's hear it.
someone that's more rigid and not open to suggestion and not even not trusting, because I know it's not that they don't trust my work, but it's more of a control thing, and they have a certain vision, and whether that's right or wrong or whatever, it doesn't matter. They just are very rigid, and it kind of takes some of the fun out of it. Because
Right.
you don't get to be as creative and playful.
At that point, they're just hiring
Whatever.
you to get the job done and not hiring you
Yes,
for who you
they
are.
just want to execute, and okay, bye. We're not friends.
Yeah.
Like, well, but we could be. I'm a good time.
Yeah.
You could be a good time if you just relax a little.
Yeah. No, I totally get
It's
it.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
It'll all be
But
okay.
yeah, I think it's more personality than necessarily the hair. Because within a season, I obviously see a lot of similar things. Just like any other bridal trend, succulents were a really big deal for like 2 summers in a row. There was a succulent in everybody's boutonniere and in everybody's centerpieces and bouquets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure florists have a lot of the same stuff that you and I do. It's
Yeah.
like everybody needs the same exact bustle because the French bustle was featured on whatever, and now
Yeah.
everybody wants one, and it
Yeah.
was really fun the first 3 times, and now it's like, okay, we're doing another one.
Right. Yep.
And which is fine. That's how trends work.
That's
But
it's the trend. Yeah.
yeah, so I think the next trend is always the next fun thing too, because it always gets you out of your comfort zone and like lets you play a little bit again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm going to jump away from brides for just a second. You work
Okay.
also in the salon. So
Yep.
tell me about the types of things that you like to do in salon and who you work with.
Sure. So I have worked in the East Lansing area my entire 20-year career. So I work approximately 40 hours behind the chair in the salon during the week, less and less Saturdays all the time because of course, bridal parties, not a lot of Tuesday weddings except for through COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to do weddings, I need to work weekends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do cuts and color. I tend to be very natural and want to, again, help every client love their reflection. I want them to feel confident. And, some people come to me and they're like, I trust you. We're doing whatever you think needs to happen. We need to brighten up because it's almost summer, or because my skin tone's a little, different because, again, we live in Michigan and don't see the light of day for months on end. So become vampires. So we have to adjust hair color and tone and stuff like that. So just making sure everybody feels confident in with their own reflections and helping them, on a day-to-day basis look and feel their best. So cuts, color are mostly, I don't do a lot of perms anymore. I know some people were really leaning into that the last year or two, actually.
Really?
Along with the mullet. And it's not really my jam, but if my beloved clients asked me to perform a perm and a mullet, then we would have a really big chat about how they shouldn't, and then we would go from there.
I love it.
But I have my clients that I've done for 10 years or plus, and without my Mary Ellens and my Patties and my Sue and Susan and all of my regulars, I wouldn't be able to do all the other stuff on the weekends because they are, and I wouldn't want to give up my regular clients to do all brides all the time. I get asked that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But I have such a close relationship with them now, and they've become, yes, they're clients, but they've also become friends. And, I'm asking them like, hey, how did, I know your grandson wasn't feeling well. I hope he's feeling better. Or, they're asking me about my girls' dance competitions. And, we know a lot about each other because that's what happens after 10, 15, 20 years of seeing each other once a month for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know a lot about each other. I talk to them more often than a lot of my family members.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's so
yeah, they're my people, and I love seeing them every month.
I'm sure the feeling is mutual. You must be just so fun to just sit and chat with for 2 hours while getting your hair done. That's got to be a blast.
I hope they're not bored to tears when they're in my chair, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
I hope they feel special when they walk in and,
Yeah. So it sounds like
wanted.
Like for you, like me, I do alterations and custom dresses, and people always ask if I'm ever going to like choose one or the other. And I'm like, I like the balance. And it sounds like that's kind of
I agree
too. You need a little of both.
That's a good way to put it.
Just keep a little variety going on in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I know for a little while, kind of mid 2000s, so maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was a big push in our industry, at least in the Michigan area, to choose. And it was like, are you a cutter or are you a colorist?
Oh,
And even within that, I was like, no, I like the balance. I think just doing highlights all day, every day, I would be like, well, yeah, but wait a minute, I'm just a little bit of a control freak, and I
yeah.
foiled it that way so that when you cut it, it shows that peak of color underneath, or
So true.
vice versa. So I feel like you would lose a little bit of the personal connection with your client, or with my client, if you didn't get to see the style all the way through. But what's right for me isn't necessarily what's right for another stylist. So I completely understand that as well. And yeah, I'm just glad I was never forced to change in any of the salons that I worked in
Yeah.
when I was still a commissioned stylist.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to brides.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone is interested in booking with you, how does the whole process work? I'm sure they first like fill out the inquiry form on your website, and then what happens from there?
Yes.
When should they reach out? All those things.
Oh boy. So again, COVID made things really unique, and we're still kind of finding the new normal with some of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, like I have a couple of brides that are booking in, that are already booking into 2024 and early 2025.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
if it's a regular, if it's a regular client of mine, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times they will reach out to me and say, look, you're clearly doing my hair for my wedding. Are you booked in this month, and what weekends do you have? Because these are the weekends we're looking at, and we're talking to the venue, and I want to make sure you align with the venue. I am so humbled by that I am one of the first vendors that those people choose.
Wow.
As a rule, if you don't know me personally and you're finding me through Instagram or a vendor referral or another bride's referral or something, most people book 9 to 12 months ahead. But I've had people reach out and say, hey, my hairstylist backed out, which I cannot imagine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The unprofessionalism that I can't even, but anyway, we won't go there. I have had some horrific situations where people are like, panicked, I don't have anybody, what do I do? And if I'm not available, I'll obviously make as many suggestions as possible, but that's been within a month or two. There's also been a few like, hey, we decided to elope, and we are, thinking like 2 weeks from now, are you available on Thursday? I don't normally work Thursdays, but I would love to be a part of your day. Yes, let's do it. So, a lot of variables there.
Yeah.
But I would say most often it's, 6 to 12 months out to book.
Okay.
And then when you book, you fill out the inquiry form on my website, which is hairpinsandhappiness.com. And there's a bridal inquiry form. As soon as that is submitted, I get back to you within a few days, hopefully. If you fill it out on a Sunday night, it might not be till Thursday or Friday, my next day off, but
yeah,
I will do my best and ask a couple questions. There's a questionnaire that I like to have my brides fill out just to kind of get an idea of their vibe and the size of their party and so on and so forth. A lot of times there's a little back and forth through email and stuff. And then I will send a customized proposal. If there's any tweaking we need to do, we can do that. And some people will fill out the inquiry form not knowing exactly how big their bridal party is because it's so far out. Like, I don't know if grandma wants her hair done, but she might, or
right.
My mother-in-law is kind of on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. As a side note, I do not book a la carte. I have packages put together. It's easier if it's like 4 to 6 people, you're going to want the pearl package. Whereas if it's a very large party, you're going to want to go up to the diamond package. I have different add-ons for bringing another stylist with me if there's a time crunch that we need to get into. We only have 3 hours to get everybody ready and there's 9 people. Clearly, I only have one set of hands and need another person to help me prep and work through it, but I will do the bride.
Yeah.
So there's that whole situation. So then you make a payment through my booking portal, which is all online. You don't have to, come into the salon or anything. Mm-hmm. And we set up your bridal preview or your trial updo, whatever you want to call it. And the date is yours.
What are your thoughts on extensions for the bride? Are you like, okay. I have some bride, which, this is kind of funny. I do the dress, right? I'm not
Right.
a hair person. I'm not a makeup person. I stick to the clothes. That's what I'm good at.
Right.
But
Yep.
I feel like so often people ask me like, oh, what hairstyle do you think I should do? And I'm like, I'm not an expert on this subject, but
Right.
I try to give them my opinion. But first part of this question is just, what do you think about extensions? Because I see a lot of girls maybe with the more fine hair that are saying they're going to wear it down Hollywood waves, but I'm kind of slowly thinking in my head, like, I feel like we need more hair for this. Do you recommend that in those types of situations?
If somebody, sometimes the bride's natural hair, like you just don't have the right fabric for that look, and that's when you need to talk to a hairstylist about your options. I'm not suggesting that you get them woven into your hair or anything like that. It's actually lovely when I have a halo to work with or clip-in extensions to work with, because then I can put it where it needs to go to achieve the look that you need for the day. And if it's an everyday set of extensions that is put into your hair that you like shampoo and style and everything, and it doesn't come out, they're in there until they're professionally removed. In that case, sometimes they're not in the spot that we need them for fullness for the day of or whatever. So I like having a little more, I'm a control freak. I like having a little more control over where they're placed.
Yeah, makes sense.
But obviously that's up to the bride. And if she wears extensions as part of her lifestyle, then that's completely different. And she might want even more, pinned in or clipped in for the day of the wedding. So yeah, it's a very personal thing. I know some girls are like, oh no, I wouldn't want that. That would drive me crazy. Then they're not for you. Don't do it. But yeah, if you have really fine, thin hair, or it's just not quite long enough to pull off that big fishtail mermaid braid that you want over your shoulder, absolutely talk to your stylist, get some clip-in extensions, and she can, or I can, or whoever can weave that into that big beautiful braid that you want. So yeah, it's another tool in our arsenal, which to help achieve the look that you're going for.
I'm just curious, how often are you seeing brides use extensions? Is it like 50-50 or where are we at?
Again, one of those things that goes in and out. I mean, there was a time where it seemed like every bride was doing it, probably about 10 years ago, and then it kind of faded out. And then more recently, I would say there's another, it kind of ebbs and flows, right? So I would say there's another big surge of most of my brides have some sort of wefting or halo or something that they want. But if it's something that you think you'll wear after your wedding too, absolutely invest and get the halo or do you know what a halo is?
I think so, but go ahead and explain it for our listeners.
A halo is a wefts of hair, and you can get whatever length and whatever thickness and color you want, but it goes from ear to ear in the back. So it circles the back of the hair, and it's a couple of layers down. So usually from here to here has hair attached and comes down. So it gives you all of that thick fullness. And then there's this tiny little clear acrylic band that comes up through here, and it clips in the back. So nobody can see this little guy because it's hidden in your natural hair in the front. So it's just giving you all of that fullness and length through the back.
It's not something you keep in your hair, right? You just
correct
put this on for
you would
day.
take that out before bed. Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about like dress necklines, veils, headpieces. What are some of your thoughts for getting or choosing a hairstyle that matches everything else you're wearing?
So I'm going to throw some of that right back at you too, because I've had brides come from all different angles with that. Some people will say, show me their inspiration photos for hair and then show me the dress that they've already purchased. So it's already ordered. It might not be in their possession yet, but that is the dress. So I know the neckline. They're still talking about veil and jewelry. The veil, on one hand, is a very personal thing, because is it going to drive you crazy? Are we taking it out after the ceremony? Most people do these days, and then go, sans veil for the rest of the day. But that complements the dress so much. My question back to you is, do you prefer to have a say in the veil and how that's going to complement or distract from your work on the dress?
I would say yes. I do have opinions on veils. So if you have not yet chosen your veil when you come to see me, I can absolutely help you decide on those things. There's so many different types of veils out there. And
Yes.
if you have like, there's color, there's cut, there's trims. If one of those things is off and doesn't match or coordinate with your dress correctly, it looks really off. So I do have opinions on that. But in general, what's very in style right now is still the long cathedral length that extends a little bit past your train. Hence why we're all taking them off right after the ceremony. They're very long and not easy to move around.
The royals for that.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often just a plain veil, no trim is very in right now, or something very light on the trim. I custom make veils too, so I can make it to the exact cut, color, length, everything to match your dress. But in general, I would really like to hear your thoughts on this. When I make custom veils, I use a nice metal comb. Do you have an opinion on metal versus the plastic?
Metal always. Thank you for that being your go-to.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm sure this will make you cringe, but I can bend it however I need to the head shape, which is necessary for it to stay all throughout the ceremony.
I never thought
I've had plastic. Yeah, the plastic ones are so stiff and they're not forgiving at all. So if this happened. I had a bride with the long cathedral length veil, and it was an outdoor ceremony, and it was so windy. It stayed in for the ceremony, but when she had asked for me to stay for touch-ups and stuff through the photo process afterward with her bridal party. Thank God she asked me to stay, because every time there was a stiff wind and she turned just right, this thing would pop right out because there was no weight to it.
Anchoring it, yeah.
Right. And I can't pin that in, because if she wants to keep it in after I am gone, to unpin, like she might be taking out the actual hair, and that's no darn good. So yeah, every time there was a stiff wind or she moved her hair just right, or somebody hugged her and her head was yanked back, this thing would just pop right out. I was like, no. And I had to keep putting it back in, but it was because that comb was so light. That plastic isn't forgiving. It just goes.
Yeah. Something that's not visible at all, but it's like so important to have the right kind of comb.
Absolutely, 100% true. And
they shouldn't be making those types of combs at all, but
no, they're garbage.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I mean, you don't know. And some people, they're like, well, the veil I'm not going to wear for very long, so I just ordered it on, whatever, and got a cheap one, because it's not something that they're putting a lot of weight in. They would rather focus on other details, which is what it is, which is fine. But yeah, that comb not being on a metal base is a problem.
Yeah. I also want to touch on one more thing. I'm backtracking here a little bit, but when you do go pick out your wedding dress for the first time at your bridal shop, I do still support, of course, choosing your veil at that moment too, because you already have the dress on and they have a bunch of veils for you to try on so you can see the full look. So if you're feeling good about purchasing a veil on that day, I strongly support that. I just want to say here on this podcast episode, because it makes sense, I hear of people bringing their veils to the trial for your hair, right? Yep. Please, just saying, shout out to brides, please bring your veil wrapped in plastic or in a bag or something where you're not just draping it over your shoulder or over your elbow.
Yeah. And also, actually, since you brought that up, when you come to your bridal preview, bringing whatever little hair bling you're planning on, whether it's some fresh flowers or grandma's jewelry or a tiara or a comb that's just embellished with some, lovely pearls or rhinestones or whatever. Bring all of those things, even if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to use them, and you're kind of hemming and hawing. Again, that's something that your hairstylist can help you decide and show you some options. Just because it's a tiara doesn't mean it has to be worn in the front. It can be worn kind of tucked up underneath on the side of an updo, or I've had them centered in the back, and then the veil was up on top. So it was after the veil is removed, you can still see that beautiful piece, but it wasn't necessarily worn as a princess crown, but they liked how it went with the dress. It was like, the beading or the sentimental value or whatever it was. But that being said, bringing your veil to the trial, if you are somebody as a bride that needs to have that visual component so you can see the finished look, great. If it's a long cathedral length, I wouldn't bring it, because why
Good to know.
risk mussing it up or whatever.
I'd support that too. Leave it safe and sound at home or wherever.
Absolutely. I mean, we can talk about it. I've had brides forget to bring their veil, because we're all human. And I've actually just held like a tissue up. Like,
Oh,
this is where this is where it will tuck
I love
into
it.
the finished look. And just for your visual, this is a Kleenex.
A true
Whatever.
creative.
Yeah, we'll make it work. It's fine.
I love it.
Picture this Kleenex made of tulle. It'll be fine. But I just don't know that it's necessary to bring this big, long, thick, triple tiered cathedral length to your trial run.
Because it would
That's
make
silly.
me so worried too if you did bring that and then like actually put it in your hair and like fluffed it and there's like some dye on the floor or something.
Sure. I mean, just silly stuff
So,
happens, and why risk it? Yeah, I completely agree. I wouldn't bring it. But again, some people are like, no, I know that I need to see this for my own sanity, because otherwise I'm going to obsess about what if I don't like where the veil is. And honestly, I've had brides on the day of change their mind. Like, I know that we have, this beautiful veil, and I definitely want to wear it, but instead of putting it on top of especially with like a low knot, there's always the back and forth of, do I put it underneath or do I put it on top of the actual style? And I've had people, again, game day decision, like, no, I think I do want it on top. Okay, not a problem. And I will make sure that I show a trusted bridal party member or mom or whoever you choose as the bride that you trust, how to take it in and out gracefully without pulling the hair out, because there's a little trick to that. But yeah, there's no reason to feel like, even if that's how you did it at the preview, you can't make a game day decision and change things, whether it's because of the weather, like we said before, or just because you changed your mind.
and I'm going to make a note on neckline of wedding dresses. If you have anything that is any sort of high neck, or especially when you have buttons coming all the way up the back of the dress, I always tell them kind of avoid that low bun, especially so that it doesn't 100% get caught on those buttons. So
and practical things like that
to think about.
Yes, thank you for telling girls that, because I have definitely had that conversation. They're like, oh, do you think it'll matter? I'm like, oh yeah. One little hair gets caught on that and it could yank whatever else is pinned to it, and then you have this weird loop. And yeah, that's just something you don't want to deal with on your wedding day. So if you have anything high like that, I would definitely say whisk that hair up higher.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you could do like what kind of appears to be a low bun, but just a little like up.
Oh, absolutely.
Higher, right? But
yeah,
it's still like overall looks like a low bun. Yeah. You just don't want it hanging. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You just need to be careful of the pin placement and stuff to make sure it's not rubbing on that, however high the neck line is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anything else you want to share with our brides or people listening?
I did want to touch base on the day of timeline for a bride. That is something that definitely needs to be talked about with your photographer, if you have a wedding planner, and then also your hairstylist. Your hairstylist, every beauty professional works at a different pace. I tend to work pretty efficiently and quickly. I plan on a half hour per upstyle and then an hour for the bride. And then I also tack on another 30 minutes at the end of our timing for touch-ups and, just in case somebody was running late or whatever, just some wiggle room at the end. So other people require 45 minutes for everybody or an hour for everybody. So knowing you can't make a timeline for your hairstylist without talking to them. So definitely talk to your beauty professionals that you have hired and ask them how much time they need per person. And then that being said, kind of working backwards from your ceremony time. And again, talking to your photographer about the same. I always ask what time the ceremony is and what time the photographer is going to arrive, and whether you're doing a first look and portraits and stuff before the ceremony, because that's kind of a 50-50 these days. And then once we have those times in place, working backwards, if I have 5 girls to do, I count on about 3 to 3.5 hours. So if the photographer is getting there at 2, we need to go back from there. So we need to start no later than like 10 by the time logistically you get in your dress, blah, 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 if you're not doing any before shots and first looks. So getting your timeline down is important. And then the beauty professionals can figure out their call time and when they're going to arrive and when they need to clean up and so on. So that's a really important aspect of the day that I think a lot of people overlook until they're like in panic mode on the day of. They're like, oh God, what time are you coming? That's not great. So at the bridal trial or preview, I always make sure to go over some of those details. It's usually closer to the wedding, because those things tend to shift and change and stuff, because that's the fickle nature of weddings. Like, oh, we didn't think about X, or the person's not coming till whenever. Things have to be a little bit fluid, and you have to be a little bit flexible with those types of things. So getting your times and everything down at the bridal preview, just to nail those down. And I always confirm the address and a second phone number, so that if, God forbid, I'm in the complex, but there's 9 entrances and I don't know where I'm going, I don't want to bother the bride necessarily. Like, or maybe she's in the shower or whatever, she's away from her phone. I need a second contact number just in case.
Yep. Maid of
or
honor,
sometimes
mom.
Whoever. Yep, absolutely. I've been at the front desk of a hotel and they won't tell me what room the bride's in, because they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So
stranger walking in, what room is so and so in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, they shouldn't tell me unless it's been okay. And usually it is okay, and that doesn't happen often. But what if? So I just need a phone number or two to contact on the day of the wedding. So some of those little details I always go over at the bridal trial.
So what is next for Carleana? What are you looking forward to this year? What's happening?
Oh my goodness. So I am really excited. I'm publishing a book. So
wow,
hopefully it
so
is.
crazy.
I know. I've been
so exciting.
So silly. I have been working on this project for over 10 years.
Wow.
I know it's, and not diligently. I mean, obviously I'll be all about it and really excited and typing chapters constantly. And my husband's like, wow, you must be almost done. And then, something would happen and I'm like, well, I don't really like the direction this is going in. And I would pivot and completely go in a different direction. So anyway, I would take a few months off from writing or not touch it for a year and a half. I have little kids and whatever.
Oh yeah, life happens. Yeah.
I don't have little kids anymore, of course, because it's been, over 10 years. They're not little anymore. I don't have that excuse. So now I write all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm closing in on finishing it up and submitting it to my editor and getting that published in the next couple months. So I'm really excited. And it's specifically about how I built my bridal beauty business. So my working title right now is Hairpins and Happiness, a hairstylist guide to building a bridal beauty business. But that might get tweaked a little bit.
I want to read it.
Hairpins, I know, I'm so excited. I hope you do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's some little, tips and tricks, of course, but a lot of things about like helping other beauty professionals build their beauty business and get them confident, and hopefully they can skip some of the junk that I figured out on my own over the last 20 years and, learn from my mistakes and learn from my successes and all of that fun stuff. So I'm really excited about it.
My goodness, that has to feel like it's just so, I don't know, just so self-accomplishing for you. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It feels really amazing to be so close to getting it out for the world and sharing some of this knowledge that I've come up with. And how serendipitous that you just happened to ask me to do this podcast with you. I was talking to my husband actually, like, should I mention my book? And he was like, yes. Why would you not?
Oh my gosh. And you're announcing it on this podcast. Like, how cool is that for me too?
I know.
Get to share the excitement.
Frankly, I have told like 3 people about my book, other than like my immediate family.
I'm number 4.
And you're number 4.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I love it. I am so excited for you. Yeah. It is just like an absolute insane accomplishment to write a book and like actually get it published. That's amazing. But also just the accomplishment of what you have put into that book. Like, I think it's so fabulous that you took 10 years to write it, because your business has just grown so much over all of the years. And that alone is a huge accomplishment. Oh, it's just so good. I'm so happy for you. Yeah. This is awesome.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm like a squirrel, and I keep writing in my little notebook or whatever, oh, that would make a great chapter, or this happened. So, I should mention that the conversation I had with Sarah the other day just made me think of X, Y, and Z, and I can add that into another chapter. Yeah. So it's like this forever evolving, growing entity of its own. And then I start thinking of things that I can write about that aren't bridal business related. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll have to write another book. Hopefully it doesn't take another 10 years.
Jeez. But even if it does, or,
even if it does,
yeah.
but now that I kind of have my voice, and I've kind of found my writer's voice, if you will, I'm kind of in the zone, I guess.
Yeah.
I know that sounds corny, but
no, I love it.
Whatever. I don't care.
Wow. So when does it launch?
So that's to be seen, but hopefully in the next couple months.
Oh, okay. So like that's pretty soon. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. So
gosh.
it'll be
so
available
exciting.
through like Amazon and all of that fun stuff.
So legit. Yeah. Wow. This is so cool.
Yeah.
I will be ordering that book because I am really excited about that. And
you'll be my first customer. You and my mom will be my first.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I'm sure there's a lot in that book too that could translate to my business, because I do feel like I have a lot of similarities with hairstylists working with individual people.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I hope so. I mean, obviously it's a nonfiction book, so it's not like for everyone. Like my husband, except for the fact that he is my husband, wouldn't have any need to read my bridal beauty business book.
Yeah.
But yeah. I hope it does lend to a lot of other creative vendors, photographers and florists, and like you said with you, being in the bridal industry, it all kind of goes hand in hand. And a lot of my chapters are inspired by other portions of the bridal industry. It's not just hair. It's very heavy on hair and makeup, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I had to go over some of the legal schmeagle stuff of like, you have to make this a legit business. You can't just be like, hey, I'm here to do your hair and put cash in your pocket. You have to actually have like, systems in place. So I cover some of that stuff too, which is again, relevant to you. So.
Wow. Fabulous. Okay. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you or just follow along with what you're working on, how can we do that?
Well, I am active on Instagram under Hairpins and Happiness. And then my website is hairpinsandhappiness.com.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for this chat. This was so much fun. I feel like I have learned so much about the mystery of what you do, and now I'll have more knowledge to talk about with my brides. So I'm excited about that. And hopefully our listeners enjoyed discussing all these things and learning how to make their wedding day even that much better.
I hope so. Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And this was lovely. It's like we just sat down we sat down for coffee.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Carleana.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. See you there.